Samia, with the author of this book, entitled The Biography of Samia. All right? We have a background on this book that is on movie. We just have 5 minutes of presentation, and after the movie, we have 15 minutes talk. I believe that the challenges of life may not be solved by Samuel here at this point, but maybe my granddaughters will be in position to help and to make a difference in the world. And I'm very happy that the Minister of Culture and Francophone, Honorable Maurice Kokuo Badaman, expressed at this conference on the first day that the book industry plays an important role in the development of Ivory Coast. And I strongly support that idea, and I thank him for making such a statement in the opening of this conference. I also want to thank the Public Affairs Department at the US Embassy, particularly Mrs. Angoran and Mr. Brooks, who is the Public Affairs Officer, for giving me the opportunity to showcase my book. You may say, well, why did you write the book? I am a college professor. I've taught biology and microbiology. I've taught nurses. I've taught pre-medical students. I have taught people in environmental health and public health. But I really felt that it was time for me to write my own story. Because if you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell a story about you. Unfortunately, every one of us here, every one of us creatures has a story to tell. And God has blessed each one of us with diverse talents. I usually tell my students that the hand is made up of all these 5 fingers, and sometimes 10 fingers. Some people have 7 fingers, you know, depending on the circumstances of life. But those fingers are so important to the hand that each one is a very unique identity. This thumb will never be bigger than this. Neither would this, neither would this. They are all separate, but they have very equal significance. And for me, that's my motivation. We will be as diverse as we want to be, but I'm very proud of my African heritage. And I know God has blessed me so much, and it is left with me to add value to those talents, those gifts, those resources that God has given to me. And that is why I wanted to write my book, because during the making of the movie Amistad, some people were questioning my lineage to Saint-Pierre. People who've never been to Africa. People who don't even know where my village is. But they were expecting me to give them albums or a Bible where there is history written in the book. They were judging me by their own experience and their own cultural characteristics. So when I had some break, I decided, let me write my book, because maybe, who knows, I may not be here next year, you know. Let me write my own story instead of allowing people to tell my story. And therefore, I feel very lucky and very humbled that God enabled me, with the support of a diverse group of people, to be able to write this book. You know, the human beings are the same. I have lived in America for over 36 years. I was born in Sierra Leone, and I migrated to the US at the age of 19, shortly after I finished high school or lycée classique. I did an undergraduate degree at the University of Indianapolis in biology and education, and I did a master's in public health at the University of Michigan School of Public Health. And I have developed undergraduate programs in universities in Mississippi. I've taught in University of Tennessee. I was deputy director for health careers program at the medical school in University of Tennessee, Memphis. When they compiled the book from Memphis, I was asked to make a statement. And this is the picture I submitted. Maybe later on you can look at it. This is the picture I submitted. I said, taking control of the chains and masks along life's journey by the mercy of God. You know, human beings all over the world will put masks on when we want to camouflage other people. And human beings have chains which prevent us from moving around, from completing your education, from achieving your own goals, from getting a job. But it's in your hand. You can take control on those chains and those masks. And so my book not only talks about the history of my people from slavery to freedom, but it also talks about my experiences of sharing and receiving knowledge, attitude, and behaviors that continue to improve civil society. I believe that if people in 1830s and 1840s were able to have conscience, to rally around themselves and around the Africans who were falsely kidnapped from their home villages, we are able to rally around them and able to convince the Supreme Court of the United States of America to try them. And for former President John Quincy Adams to come back and represent them. And they were able to win their case that in fact they were not legally slaves, but they were kidnapped Africans that were taken overseas. And for those abolitionists to come together, diverse group of people, European people, African people, Indians, they were all collaborative. And they empowered them to travel back to Sierra Leone, and they established schools, hospitals, and other institutions. Then we still can do those same things to make things better. Our collective knowledge, our collective responsibilities, and our motivations and compassion for humanity, we can make life better for all of us, instead of just few privileged people. And on that note, on the back of my book, I would like to read just that page. As a descendant of the enslaved Africans who became poster children of the US abolitionists in 1839, I have great respect and appreciation for former President John Quincy Adams for defending the human rights of the Amistad Africans in the Supreme Court of America. I am also very grateful to all the people of conscience, especially former President John Kennedy, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., former President Bill Clinton, former President George Bush, and current President Barack Obama for their diverse and leadership styles that have targeted improvement of standards and quality of life in Africa and the global community. President Kennedy took great political risks by intervening to release Reverend Martin Luther King from prison in 1960, using the National Guard to desegregate Southern colleges, including the University of Mississippi, where my own son just graduated last year, December 2013, with a degree in criminal justice and sociology and law enforcement. President Kennedy's oratory skill remind me of President John Quincy Adams, especially the quote in his June 1963 Civil Rights Address. And let's listen to this. This is very crucial. We have a right, he was addressing the American people. We have a right to expect that the Negro community will be responsible. They will uphold the law, but they also have a right to expect that the law will be fair, that the Constitution will be colorblind. Close the quote. For me, I have learned that every partnership must be of mutual commitment for true transformation to be effected in a sustainable manner. From my humble beginning in Tayama, Sierra Leone, and the deep and abiding faith in God and fellow human beings, including my parents, I believe that I have life experiences that can trigger partnerships for peace and appropriate capacity building and strengthening. Like PIEH of the Amistad Saga, I believe and I practice honestly helping others while helping myself. Leadership with stewardship for public good is highly recommended for civic transformation. And I hope all of you will buy this book or will get this book at some point in time, either from the website, which is at the bottom of this picture, or you can write your name and give it to one of the staff around, so that hopefully my books will be here in the next week or so that you can be able to have a copy. What I've decided to do, whatever I get from this book, I'm using it to improve access to water, sanitation, and hygiene in Africa. My heart bleeds when I go around. I go to universities, not yet in Ivory Coast, but in Sierra Leone and Liberia. I go to delivery rooms in hospitals, and there's no water. I go to surgical rooms in the hospital, and there's no running water. School children go to school late because they are out trying to get water to bring to the house. Mothers have to struggle to get water to cook. And we have all the brains, all the technology. So that's my mantra, to improve access to safe water, sanitation, and hygiene, and particularly efforts to prevent infection. I believe if we had those in place, Ebola would not be where it is today. Chairman, I rest my case. If there are any questions or comments from the members, please let's engage each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Before giving the floor to Mr. P for maybe to answer the question, I would like to come back on his speech and give some ideas about this book. He was talking about the ideas. The first one is, you don't tell your own story, somebody else will do it. Second, we do have chains and masks, but according to Mr. B, we can take control of all them. And next, we need to have partnerships everywhere, maybe in African people and those living maybe in Europe or in America. And I would like to thank him again for his role in terms of how giving access to sanitation and water in Africa to help people improve living conditions. Now, if you have any question, then this is the moment. I'm going to give you the floor. You ask the question, and they will have the opportunity to answer. So I'm going to open a list of maybe 5 people who want to ask a question, and then after the question, they're going to answer.
That is why after my graduate school, the first place I went was to open a public health school in Mississippi, where we trained sanitarians, public health inspectors, and encouraged the mayors to provide water treatment facilities and sewage treatment facilities for their communities. I'm hoping that the opportunity to even participate in this forum in Abidjan, I can touch the minds of some of you, Ivorians. Ivory Coast is a very beautiful country. God has blessed it with tremendous resources. But when I was a child, they told me cleanliness is next to godliness. And I attended a business conference 3 weeks ago, and a European lady told me, he says, Mr. PIEH, when I talk about people cleaning around their home or their streets, people who were urinating in the street, they told me, if you don't like it, go back to Europe. I felt really bad for my brother or my sister to make a statement like that. You know, because cleanliness is cleanliness. I don't care whether it's in Europe or in Africa or in America. Yeah, because when I went to a restaurant yesterday, there is a hand detergent that is standing right there, and I see people very conscious about washing hands. Now, did you ever used to practice this hand washing before? No, honestly, huh? Let me hear you. Did you? No, right? But we are doing, something good is coming out of this, and I hope we will continue doing it. So, my brother, I hope there is enough reason that I've shown that I intend to use the writing of this book to make an impact not only on Sierra Leone, but in Ivory Coast or any other place that I go. And I have started in America. I've been to most of the universities just talking to the young people because they need to change their mind about Africa, and we should help them to change their mind about Africa so that we can be true partners, okay, where we respect and trust each other.
Thank you very much. Yes.
My name is Zara, and it's my second time to see Mr. Samuel. The first time was serious American culture, and seeing Mr. Samuel was like something good for me because when he speaks, when he smiles, when he shares something to you, you feel it and you really like you made my day. So my question. I don't have really a question. I just want to say that I'm happy to be here and tell you a little bit about my story because it's about story, autobiography. I am 24 years old and I live in Abidjan. I am an engineer in computer science. I got my degree in Morocco. I came back here in Ivory Coast, and really that sound really out to me when I listen to Mr. Samuel about what we do in our everyday in Ivory Coast, because when you have the opportunity to feel what we say cross culture, we really understand what he said, and I hope really for those who never go outside, try to just make this.
My contribution will be about the question of the question talking about the past can be changed. The writer talked about the past, but what we change. It's not preventing the change, but prevent us from going around. But my own concept is about the major slavery. Because it's true that sometimes we are physically enslaved. But I thought the mentality, when we are mentally enslaved, is something that is very, very, very important for African people to try to get rid of this mental slave. So what I thought of Marley when we were talking about the redemption song, we asked people to emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None. Nobody can free yourself unless you free yourself from mental slavery. And this is one of the problems of Africa. We are mentally enslaved, and we want to be like people, like other people, and putting ourselves behind masks. And they said, to have a diversity, we need to be true. We need to be ourselves. Then we can exchange with other people. You are A, I am B. I have my B, you have your A. Then you bring yours, I bring my own, and then we can share. This is what I would like to add to Mr.
Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah,
There was something to add?
Amen. Amen. You know, with your A, your B, your C, then we can spell words, and we can make sentences, and we can write books. So let's just be mindful. Thank you very much, Mrs. Yao. God is positive. I'm so excited because I know the Africans are very well endowed with all the materials. For me, when I look at Sierra Leone, I sometimes cry. Diamond, gold, bauxite, rutile, fisheries, palm trees, forestry, the beaches, and the human beings, beautiful women that Europeans come out to get, to take back. But we are not putting the right value on those things. So your A's and your B's and your C's and the Z's, we can make good cacophony of music. We can make good scriptures. I'm not a pastor, but Ephesians 4. Those of you who are pastors or Christians or believe in reading, read Ephesians 4 to understand the diversity of our talents and our gifts and how we can harness those.
Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
For Dr. PIEH. It's about the Amistad people. I'm always surprised, and I think that I have to ask this question. Why was there mislead? Why we are trying to escape from the slavery and from the condition they had?
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Angoram. When I finished graduate school and my first job, they gave me my office and a secretary and an office. But now, in the last 20 years, when they give me a job, they just give me my computer and give me a desk. Okay? And it's only in Abidjan that I've started using Facebook and other things because, I didn't grow up on those things. Okay? So your question, when the Amistad Africans actually defended, by natural instinct, they were able to revolt. But trying to come back to Africa, it was very difficult because they didn't have the maritime skills to be able to maneuver the ocean and the climate to come back. So again, you look at what knowledge, what skills would you need to navigate in the world in which you find yourself? Fortunately now, when my uncle and others older than me traveled to Europe, it used to take them 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to leave Africa to go to America or Britain. But now it takes you 12 hours. So time is really shortened. When we have Ebola in Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, America didn't think they would have one, but in very short time, they were able to get the experience. So the world is getting smaller and smaller. Okay, in the 1830s, the Africans were not too versed with maritime technology. And so some people who put the mask fooled the Africans. And when they talk about corruption, President Van Buren of America tried to manipulate the court system during the proceedings of the court cases. Even he used to send his Secretary of State to go and change things. But when God is in your favor, things will happen. Finally, when John Quincy Adams took the case and went to the Supreme Court and showed them their constitution and really punched them in their heart, their conscience. That's why I say we need more people with conscience and compassion. And with your skills, you can do almost miracles. The same miracle that brought Barack Obama to be president of America. Nobody really dreamt of that. Jesse Jackson cried. People of his age group cried. They didn't expect that. But thank God, the fall from the space exploration and the discovery of cell phone, the world is changing. You can communicate with anybody. And Barack Obama and his team, his young, dynamic campaigners, were able to use technology. They didn't ask for much more. It's $5. Everybody, you know, everybody just give $5. And the campaign money came like drones. Everybody gave something. So let us learn skills. Let us improve our knowledge. Let us improve our attitude. Because with those three things, knowledge, attitude, and behaviors or practices, can transform things, can turn things around, especially if you have compassion and commitment. So for the young people, please stay in school. Please learn as much as you can, because the internet has almost anything you can, information is there. And be involved in internship. I was very happy to see some Ivorians who do internship at the university, at the embassy. You need to go out into the world and experience it and learn as much as you can so that you'll be able to maneuver in the real world.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Yao, you have a question?
Mr. Yao.
Mr. Yao.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
I haven't still have the opportunity to read the book, but if it comes to me, I'm not hesitate. You said, listed your book was adapted into the movie by Steven Spielberg. And during the presentation of the movie, when it was published in the US, your kinsman scared about it and asked me, why did you write a book against slavery? And for the one reason, it was a boycott. So I have two ideas opposing. Would you like to share with us why your kinsmen were scared about the film, and on the other side, why people were boycotting the film?
You know, the answer to your questions are still based on, there's something in every human being called fear. You know, human beings or any living thing with some senses, we fear what we don't know. We fear what we don't believe. We fear something that is new. And slavery is something which my parents would not even talk about it. I don't know how many Africans would like to talk about slavery. Likewise, it's uncomfortable for some Europeans when you start talking about slavery. But again, you know, it will take some time for all of us to understand that we are all human beings. If we believe that then it really doesn't matter whether you talk about slavery or non-slavery, because these are things which all human beings have participated. And I tell my audience that my grandmother used to say, because when I grew up, we used to take a bath in a bucket, bucket, go outside, take your clothes, and then you wash yourself, okay? He said, you never be ashamed of the bucket that you take bath in. Okay? Now, some people still wonder what does it mean, okay? But you have to be fair, you have to be open about what is confronting you, and methodologically address those so that you can take advantage of the situation. Some people felt that Steven Spielberg is going to make money out of our experience as slaves, being enslaved. And some people felt that there are filmmakers in Africa, especially Burkina Faso or Burkina Faso or West Africa, would make good films. But it costs 50 million to make a film, at least, How many of us have that? When I used to recruit medical doctors and dentists to go to Zimbabwe, go to Liberia, Sierra Leone for medical work, I tried hard to recruit African Americans, people of African descent. And I never could get anybody to go. Until one day I had lunch with a friend and he explained to me, he said, I'm running this clinic. If I'm not there, there won't be enough money to pay my staff. Well, other people who had money, maybe 3 generations down the line, could afford to take off 2 weeks to go provide medical service overseas. That's just practical life. So we have to be very realistic that we don't misinterpret things. When I used to go to some restaurants in the US, and I like to eat steak, but I like my steak well done. But most Europeans like their steak rare. They like blood coming out of it. So you're the first one, you sit down and you make an order, and this person comes and he orders, and they serve him first. Your blood pressure starts rising, say they're discriminating against you. But when you really understand the truth, it's not discrimination. It's just that they prefer different, medium rare beef, and you prefer well done beef. So it takes longer time to prepare my food than to prepare their own food. So sometimes our perceptions are not real, and sometimes circumstances may not really be reflexive of the situation. So, for me personally, I felt bad that we didn't make the movie in Sierra Leone or West Africa. But then there was war in Liberia, there was war in Sierra Leone, and it was not safe. But here is a young man, here is a young Ivorian. I just met after 2 months ago when I came to volunteer teaching English at the Ceres, and the American corner. And I just talked to a lot of young people, including my friend here, We meet on Saturdays for 2-3 hours, and I tell them you have to learn to speak by speaking. You have to learn to listen by listening. You have to learn to write by writing. And they are improving their language skills. And Ebrin has been so helpful to me to settle down in Ivory Coast. I didn't know he was a journalist, but now wherever I go, he follows me and documents things. This morning I was looking at my email, and I saw my son called me and said, I saw you on the Facebook. This was just a few days ago when I was here talking to some of the participants of it. So please, let us be open-minded. Let us get rid of our masks. Let us get rid of our chains, because sometimes those chains are not real. Yes, we have been mentally deranged, a lot of us. People my age or older have been really messed up mentally. But I know I've been messed up, but I am trying to change. If I can change, anybody can change, because you know, I'm not that smart myself. So let us just be mindful. Let us learn more about ourselves. Be proud of you being African. Because a lot of us, once you see me, I look like you put me in a different category. But take me for my, like Martin Luther King said, take me for my character. Don't just discount me because I look like you. I could be God. You know, you never know. You could be God. You could be God. So let's just be open-minded and treat each other. In spite of our mental case, it is a fact that if you put a chain on the elephant for several years, even when you remove the chain, they won't go out again. They will feel they are still in that chain. And in the United States, because African people were told to sit in the back of the bus, even today, some people just go to the back of the bus. They don't even think about it. But there are people who really deliberately and intentionally get mad and just go sit in the front. Well, I hope you don't do that because it's not healthy for you. Don't raise your blood pressure to react to those things. Just take things that believe that you are the image of God, you're created in the image of God, and through God you can do anything. That we don't have to be cutting that cacao pod with machete in 21st century. That we can get some Ivorians or some Sierra Leoneans to come and...
Two last questions? Two last questions. Yes.
Thank you, sir. My name is Ofizeli. I'm a counselor on the Ghana, and I still with studying the language English. My question is the following. We are African, and I'd like to know how do we perceive the notion of Marx as African? The notion of Marx. How do you perceive it? How do you see it?
I think this question is more about, the significance we give, because in Africa we have the meanings of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just say something about it, the meaning of the mask.
Yeah. You know, mask, I belong to one of the highest ranking masks in Sierra Leone. And I put my children, when they were 5, I took them to my village and we went through the process. There are some good things about everything that human beings do, and there are some bad things that human beings do. I love America, but I tell them they have a very ugly beginning, but I have seen them change in my lifetime. I used to sit with President Clinton when he was governor in Arkansas. We used to sit in town meetings and talk to the rural people, African people in various small communities who had no sewer system. And today you go to those communities, there's water, there's sewer system. Yes, we cherish the mask in Africa. Almost every African country cherishes the mask. It's a tradition, it's culture. But cultures do change. You know, if a culture is not adding value to you and your children and your system, you can always modify the culture. If the mask is only used to entertain, fine. But if the mask is used not only to entertain, but to do devious things that are damaging, I tell most of my Western partners that if you do things intentionally and deliberately to hurt me or to hurt somebody else, God is going to pay you. Okay? Anything you do intentionally and deliberately to hurt somebody else. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a village where the African would go at night and fly and go to the other people's farm and destroy it. Am I lying? Okay, all right. So I tell my uncle, I said, well, why don't we make an airplane so that we can go to Ivory Coast, or go to Liberia and get some money? Okay? So, if you have a church or if you have a group, call me, let me come and talk to them. Okay? We really need to change our mind. We really need to change the way we perceive life. God bless us so much. God wants us to have fun. He wants our children to grow well. He wants us to know the world and be the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So if you're going to hide your own salt behind the masks, fine. I have put the mask away, and I tell people I have given up the mask. It costs a lot of money to make this book. But I said, I want you to know that the mask and chains of life must be disbanded. I'm just one. I might be a voice in the wilderness, but hopefully there will be two people here who agree with what I'm saying, that masks are camouflaging. Masks are deceiving. Let us use masks for a better purpose than masquerade all the time.
Okay.
In fact, I raised the question because, Marx seems to be an identity aspect for African people. And when I was listening to you, it seemed to me that you are a Christian. And when you say that to remove the mask from me, it means that we have to neglect our cultural, our identity, because you see, for me, when I see the mask, I see my roots. I see my roots. But when you say that we have to remove the mask, for me, we have to put aside our identity. So that's why I tell you the question.
Thank you very much for you bringing that point. But believe me, even those that wear masks, even the original Africans who use the mask, believe that there is one God, right? And because that God is so big, they did not really know, what this God looks like. They wanted something to identify that God with. In some villages, it's the river, where they go and fish and catch plenty of fish. In some villages, is the forest, where they have a lot of animals, a lot of, they can go there hunting and get some food. But all human beings believe in one God. So, like I say, my mother was a Muslim. She didn't go to school. My father was a Christian. But all 9 of us were exposed to both Christianity and Islam. When I was manager of public health in Sierra Leone, after I finished my graduate study, we were building toilet facilities in various communities. In my research, I could tell which community is Islamic and which community is Christian. The Islamic people are very meticulous about hygiene. I did not find any messed up walls in the toilets of the Islamic community. But in the Christian community, the paper was on the floor, the walls were filthy, they were writing on the walls and stuff like that, okay? All I did was to take some pictures and meet with them and we discussed things, okay? In my house, my wife and I are home. We leave our shoes at the door. That's Islamic, supposedly, okay? But as a scientist, as a public health person, I know when I wear my shoes, I go to Ubugon, I go to all this Stressfield, I go to all these places, bacteria, fungus, viruses are hanging on every part of my shoes. If I go to my bedroom which is closed at night. I read that all night. Next morning I'll be coughing like something. Okay? So just because the Islamic people do it, probably they don't have the interpretation of it like that. But for me, after really studying that, I decided I would wear my shoes in my bedroom. I'll leave it downstairs and then go to my bedroom. So please, I hope in your own, if I can convince you, maybe you can convince somebody else. Yes, it is our identity, but our identity is greater than that mask. Our identity as a child of God who has power to transform the world. You know? If we can fly at night, let's don't kill the neighbor. Let us don't destroy the farm of the neighbor. Okay? Don't destroy the daughter or the son of your neighbor. Love each other. I mean, I've been to church 3 times since I came to Ivory Coast. 3 times. The first time they translated the sermon in English. The second time they didn't do translation. The third time they didn't do translation. And I met the pastor, but he was not friendly. So I decided I'm not going to church again, you know? Okay, I don't have to go to church to be treated that way. But I believe that there is a God and that I respect each other. Here is my student, my doctor. This is my star student, Sister Kunu. I talk to her, I tell her what I feel, what we feel in class. You know? We communicate something that benefits all of us. And believe me, the world can be much better if we can be honest to discuss things with each other. And let us not hide behind those masks. Yes, it is our culture, but our culture can make us, sometimes it slows our progress. Okay? Because Abidjan should not be the way it is. Sierra Leone should not be the way it is. Liberia should not be the way it is. Guinea should not be the way it is. And you are the future leaders of this country. I mean, be respectful. And I know you're a gentleman. I'm afraid to talk to you, but you know, you can still protect us, you know. And just know that, you know, we are all human beings. We need order. We need some orderliness. I wish we can straighten the drivers in this city, you know, but that's a huge task. But God willing, we will. Okay. That's a very good question. But like I said earlier, one of the reasons why, well, there are 2 reasons why this book is so small. One is that when I wrote a big book, they charged me so much money I couldn't afford it. And then I also know I have taught in schools all over the US. When the book is big, students run away from it. People don't like to read books. And I wanted to make the book very attractive, you know? See this tree? I wanted the palm tree to be on it. But it's hard to give the color of palm tree. It's hard to give the diversity of colors. I wanted to emphasize the diversity of nature, Mother Nature. How plants change, fall, you know, winter, summer, stuff like that. And but even when you write this book can be translated in any language. And you can access this book in any computer. And one of the reasons why I'm here is to at least give you a snapshot of it. Hopefully it will motivate you to go read it, or at least you would have got some gist of what is in this book. Just like our professor was sharing some of the references to the face mask. So don't feel that the book, people don't read books. Yes, that's true. But there are other media that are now available that you can get books in short form, in abridged form, and I hope that that will be the way we'll go. And please, nothing is easy. You have to just have the interest and desire, and you can do it. If you really make up your mind, say, hey, I'm going to master this, I'm going to do this. I mean, when you think of people flying airplanes, with 250 or 300 people, when in fact, when they first started teaching science, in gravity, what did they say? What goes up will come down, right? And they throw, when you were taking physics, you know, they throw the apple and the apple falls down. But you know, as you study, then you develop something to counter that, so that this jumbo jet 747 can hang in there for 12 hours with all those people eating, drinking, you know, and they're moving. We defy gravity. So it can be done, and it's waning down. Most people don't like to read books, but there are still a lot of opportunities for books.
Okay. The questions? I think time is up. I will give you a chance to ask you the very last question, please.
When somebody really challenges you sometimes, it will motivate you to do something. Like I said, there was a director of a museum in New Orleans. He was the director of the Amistad Research Center in New Orleans, Louisiana, United States. He was on television saying he doesn't know me as being a descendant of Silver. And he said, because I was never able to produce album, which most Europeans have album pictures of their ancestry, or they have some in their Bibles, you know, the names of family members and all of that. So I did research on him. He had never even crossed Washington, D.C. He had never been outside of America. So I said, why is this guy talking like this? And I found out too that a lot of things that are written about Africa are written by people who really don't love Africa, who don't really have the best interest of Africa. So I decided to write my own history so that at least nobody has to be telling the truth about me. And I strongly believe that when you know yourself, when you're proud of yourself, when you believe in what God has given you, you can do anything. So the motivation is there, and I hope each one of you will be motivated to really rise up, to document the story of the family, because each one of us has a story. See, when they talk about history, they didn't even recognize women's stories. Why can't we talk about her struggle? When they talk about heroes, you don't think they are heroes? Somebody tells you how to spell knife. K-N-I-F-E. Well, you don't believe, everybody in the world believes that that's the way to spell knife, right? But why can't we spell knife? N-I-F-E. Huh? Young people, you can create your own book. We have new music going on in the world. You can be creative. God has given you everything to create, to be creative. And I really want to see more of you developing computers. When Japan started making electronics, we used to call them Sankamaru, no good. Now they are light years away from America. They make some of the best cars now. So let's start making cars. Let's start encouraging our universities to develop some cars or some other processes. Like I like to see some technology to crack that cacao pod open and transform that beans into something quicker than we have been doing it. I went to my village 3 years ago, and they were still cooking on those 3 stones with some wood on it. Yeah, come on, let's move up now, right? You are the young people, you can create things, huh? So create things, write new books, and come up with some concepts. We need new programs on television that will show African culture. Okay? I saw some guy showing, some Indian guy teaching how to dance, Indian dance, you know?
Okay. Je suis Yacinthe Oudraogo, je suis acteur social, je travaille dans une structure à fonction caritative dans un quartier précaire d'Abidjan, à Koumonsi. Je suis doctorant en philosophie, je suis homme des lettres en quelque sorte, je travaille dans l'éducation, le relèvement du... Notre structure travaille en vue du relèvement du continent africain.
Et comment vous êtes sentez déjà avec ce que vous avez reçu sur les
C'est vraiment une grande joie pour moi, c'était inattendu. J'avais vu, je venais fréquemment au centre de l'ambassade des États-Unis, mais je ne savais pas que c'était l'auteur de l'ouvrage Amistad. Et c'est vraiment une grande joie pour moi en tant qu'homme des lettres, c'est une grande joie d'être toujours auprès d'un écrivain. Et comme je suis sur le chemin de l'écriture, c'est une grande joie et ça me donne une nouvelle impulsion pour pouvoir finir les ouvrages et les manuscrits que j'ai entamés. Je l'ai entamé, mais je n'ai pas fini. Voilà, comme il est volumineux, je l'ai entamé, je n'ai pas fini. Et je pense pouvoir le réacheter puis le finir.
Thank you for the opportunity that you've given me. My name is Kwasi Thierry. Yeah, it was a pleasure for me to be here to know about, let's say, the author of the book. Yeah, and what makes me be, let's say, enjoy the book was the fact that it was an autobiography. Yes, and I did appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to getting the word, let's say, the book, and then read it carefully to understand really its main, let's say, its main idea and its aim also, because it's just explain the book itself, but I have to get deep, let's say, about the explanation.
What are you expecting for this?
What am I expecting? I'm expecting, let's say, to be, let's say, I know nothing about that, but let me read first and then my impression will come after.
Okay, so why are you writing dedicating these books? What are your impressions?
What are my impressions? Well, I tell you, I am overwhelmed right now. I'm delighted to be part of this year's celebration of books, and I thank God that most of you are able to join me in sharing this type of experience. I hope we can all grow and continue to inform and inspire others to write their own stories, to tell their own stories, and share their lessons from history. Thank you very much, Eric. That's your brother? Ah, okay. That's an easy name. Thank you.
「 Jeli seba de namuke.
Keme nimba.
Ah.
Alado
Nene de.
Keme bila nimba yana yi. Alado jabar ala. Naya mi so keme na ala fui kabarigada. Bara ya mi je kamera ma bengala la di tu masala ala.
Jigide. Semeru damba de namu.
Hina masala. Jabaru masala.
Bambara de namu.
Fama mana miso. Daulala ala foi kabarigada. Bara ya mi je daulala ma bengala.
Jamder de nananye. De namu
bima manyuma ko bila dunya koroba bima sabali bila dunya la bima hina bila dunya la ko temana ngana yara temana ko jamambala
ama kuyate de namu